And how we operate, how we sleep, and how our brain works is we work in pulses. Okay. We can talk about ultradian cycles and circadian and menstrual, you name it. It's everything in nature and life is pulses and cycles. But we seem to think that we can just put our foot in the accelerator and just work from the moment we wake up.
Yoga Mara welcomes you to the Love Your Limits podcast. We are two sisters from the west of Ireland with a passion for helping people connect back to themselves and feel less alone on their journey. Both of us have contrasting personalities, career background, and life experience, yet each of us found physical, emotional, and mental healing from learning to live more intuitively and with integrity.
We will be sharing our own personal journeys alongside interviewing a wide range of health and wellness experts that will empower you to shed fear, self-doubt, and move into a place of self-love and confidence. It is time to put yourself first, create healthy boundaries, and learn to love your limits. Today on the Love Your Limits podcast, we have the fabulous Tom Coleman. Tom is a qualified health scientist and sleep coach. For over a decade, Tom has worked with elite and professional athletes, multinationals, and individuals on sleep, health, and performance. Tom speaks extensively on managing stress and performance. He also contributes to media, Newstalk, Today FM, and has contributed to research on sleep and is now launching Ireland's first dedicated sleep podcast. Welcome to the Love Your Limits podcast, Tom. It is so good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Can you give us just a little bit of a background into what led you to gain such a passion and wealth of knowledge around sleep and the importance sleep has on our overall health and well-being?
Sure. I was always curious. So curiosity led me to my degree area first. You know, always like a kid asking, but why? Why is that? Why is that? So I studied health science for 3 years. And that's a very broad degree. So, I mean, we covered everything from pharmacology to psychology to basic sciences and everything else. When I left college then, I was interested in nutrition. And this was about 15 years ago. So everyone was looking for the magic bullet. Nutrition was, you know, very much on the up and up. And I got into nutrition. From that, I quite quickly got to work with elite level athletes or pretty high level athletes. And I became obsessed then with recovery because I knew, I mean, their focus was how can I recover really well, really fast. And that's where sleep came in. That's where I discovered the power of sleep, to my surprise as well, you know. And from that, then I got to work with a tech company in the US. They had wearable technology, which was developed by US military for special forces and for their fighter pilots, which analyzed sleep and fatigue as well. So give the user a reading for mental fatigue. So that was about 10 years ago. And since that, then I've been involved in research. And of course, you know, my son came along and then I found myself, you know,
not sleeping.
the victim of a sleep deprivation project headed up by my little boy. But since that, he's developed quite nicely. And now we're back into normal sleeping again. And look, it is a passionate subject, and I've learned that it impacts every aspect of our health and well-being.
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of want to touch on because, you know, sleep is such a buzzword, and I don't think a lot of us value the level of importance it has on our overall health and well-being. Can you kind of elaborate on that for us today? Like, why is it so important for us? What is the science behind it?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's a question I get a lot. People might zone in on certain things like, is it good for fat loss? Is it good for mental health? Does it have anything to do with fertility? All of these things, the answer is yes, absolutely. And I've delved into the sort of mechanism of why and try and explain that to people. So when we sleep, we're in a state of adaptive inactivity, where adaptations happen to help us deal with the world and survive as a species, right? So this is the strategy we have chosen. So some of the things that happen: restoration, repair, resetting. And the way I describe it is, If you have to clean out your house or your car or your fridge, you have to decide what to keep, what to throw away, what to clean, what needs a good scrub, and this happens every night with your body and your brain. And it's absolutely essential. So just touching on one or two things, if we talk about growth hormone, talk about the physical repairs that happen, tissue repairs, muscle repairs. So most of your growth hormone secreted over 24 hours is secreted in slow wave deep sleep. Okay, about 75%. So if you're talking to guys about growth hormone, they're thinking muscles and all that. Absolutely, yeah. But growth hormone for all of us is like the elixir of life. That's where we get really good skin. It's because of growth hormone. That's just one sort of physical attribute. Our immunity is profoundly impacted. We want an appropriate immune response. So that's what mediates that is sleep. Sleep mediates the immune response. We restock, we make immune cells while we sleep. So all that physical stuff is happening. In the second half of the night is when all the psychological repair happens. Hugely important, because we know if we're sleep deprived, we're just cranky. I mean, we know with kids, they're cranky. Right? Emotional regulation goes out the window. Many things happen. The first thing that happens is lymphatic drainage. Your brain cleans itself while you sleep. And that's really important for our short, medium and long-term well-being. We dream, and fascinating stuff, I know. And the reason we dream is we rehearse threats that we have in our everyday life through dreaming, because it's a safe way to do it. So we have a virtual reality simulator in our mind that rehearses our threats. And that gives us this kind of reassurance that we can handle a problem or an issue. Our mood is impacted. We embed positive emotional experiences that we've had. And then in terms of getting rid of, well, if you've had a very stressful event, your brain disassociates that at night and gets rid of it. So if you're missing out, if you're not getting enough sleep, then you're missing out on all that psychological repair, neuroplasticity, learning, all that's happening in light sleep in the brain. So much going on from every kind of angle or attribute really that is positively impacted from getting enough quality sleep.
I think the quality sleep is the word as well, because sometimes you can get a lot of hours of sleep, but you can still wake up completely exhausted or still look tired or feel drained. And it might be, I know my partner uses the Whoop band because he's an athlete. So they track their sleep, especially in the recovery side as well. Is there kind of like a fear that people would get nearly too driven to the data of the sleep rather than waking up and feeling it? Looking at recovery wise, you can get nearly too analytical with your sleep at some stages. Yeah,
I see it a lot. Like people who have high achiever syndrome, right? They will wake up, checking to see if they're hitting their stats on their sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they need to back away from it because the issue there is nocturnal secretion of cortisol, because we secrete cortisol like many hormones continuously over 24 hours. Now it should be peaking at morning time. It should be at its lowest at night time. And here's the thing: cortisol is anticipatory. Like think about if you have a flight or an important meeting. The next day, how's your sleep? It's ruined because you're waking up. That's cortisol. Yeah. So we're very sensitive. So if someone has this anticipatory kind of anxiety, they're going to start secreting cortisol at night to check to see if they're hitting their sleep numbers. Okay. They need to back away. Now, I've worked with the gold standard of wearable tech. The accuracy of the data is questionable at some level when it goes into that very fine detail. Now, so I'd encourage people to track it, but not to obsess about it.
Yeah. And I think if you're more that way inclined, maybe think twice about committing to it. Because I know even one of his teammates would have worn the Whoop, woken up, felt really good and refreshed, then checked his data and was like, I didn't have a good sleep. I'm not recovered. And then automatically your mindset is, okay, you're actually not feeling good today. So then you start to feel that.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
It's been researched. It can really ruin your day.
Yeah.
So take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. I know from experience myself, like I would have had no trouble sleeping. I can sleep well.
Great.
I know.
Lucky you.
But my problem is sometimes I'll wake up after it could be 8 hours sleep and I will be exhausted or drained. And now it's not often, but it can happen. And yeah, I'm just wondering, when you mentioned and touched on mental fatigue, could that have something to do with it? Maybe, we have so much stress.
Yeah.
People experience a lot of anxiety nowadays.
Yeah.
That obviously has an impact on our sleep and our quality of rest.
It does. I mean, how deep are we going in the deeper phases? I mean, we should, there is really percentages, like we should be spending about 25% of our time in REM sleep. We should be spending about 25% of our time in deep sleep, and 50%, in the other stages, primarily stage 2 sleep, shall we say. But the quality is really important. Like sometimes people will wake up and feel really tired. Now, my measure is this. Like there's a few measures. So the measure is not how you feel immediately after waking, because in 10 years of working with people, like I've met 2 people who are like, I wake up and feel refreshed in the morning. It's like, no, most of us wake up and we're groggy because we have adenosine, the tiredness molecule, floating around the system.
Yeah.
How are you after 30 to 60 minutes? That's the kind of, and then are you experiencing sleepiness during the day? Those are the kind of questions to gauge then the quality and quantity of your sleep. Now, sometimes when you get a good long sleep, you feel more lethargic and more tired because the systems have shut down properly.
Okay, so that makes
like
sense.
that oversleeping kind of thing, if you slept too much or you
Well,
sleep in too
I
late.
mean, there is too much, but then if you have missed out on sleep for 3 or 4 nights in a row, and then you sleep for 9 hours, you're still going to wake up tired.
Yeah,
it's
catching
like
up.
It's like as though one night isn't enough, for sure, and it's like as though the brain and body kind of know, and they let go and they allow you into that really deep sleep, and you get more of it maybe. And the other issue I see a lot of is people who are wired and tired, stressed out, right?
Yeah.
They have no problem with sleep onset. They'll fall asleep, but then they'll wake up. And sleep won't take away the feeling of fatigue.
Yes.
That feeling that people have, and people who are very busy. And I see this with a lot of my clients, and a lot of my clients are female. Like my typical client would be a kind of, late 30s, maybe teacher with a couple of young kids, and maybe just got married and moving into a new house, 500 things going on in their lives. Don't feel as though they're doing any of them really well. Trying to practice self-care, getting all the messages about self-care, but looking after everyone in the house and trying to do their job and feeling exhausted and full of guilt. And then when they sleep, it's almost like they feel guilty for sleeping, and I've encountered that. When they sleep, they don't feel rested upon waking. They're constantly tired, and I think maybe self-care is the answer there. Maybe stepping back a little bit and prioritizing yourself for those people is huge.
Because we would see that a lot from our experience on escapes in the past, on yoga escapes, and predominantly women coming on our escapes. And again, like that, we've encountered feelings of guilt, feeling bad for leaving their kids at home for 2 or 3 nights. And we will have to remind them, because I know I suffer with guilt all the time. And I think as a mother, you're trying to do every job 100%, and then you feel like you're failing at everything because you can't do it all. If you're doing really well in something, you're going to be failing in something else. And that's the hard reality and truth. And it's, like you said, bringing in that self-care, the gentleness, the compassion, the kindness to yourself. And we would always use the analogy of the oxygen mask, in the play. You fill yourself up before you fill the child. And it's like that when you're giving that self-care to yourself, you come back more rested, more present, more ready to tackle whatever the day gives you,
Yeah, and I think also, with the word compassion, sometimes that might be a harsh thing. It might be a boundary you've to set.
Yes.
Guilt is about control, really, when we think about it. But compassion is not always a soft thing with another person or ourselves. And I think a lot of the issues I see with sleep are down to boundary issues, you know, and when there's a family dynamic going on, it gets complicated pretty quick, you know, and it gets emotional pretty quick, and it gets all types of, you know, and then the tired brain isn't able to really think straight.
Yeah,
you
think
know,
rationally,
because you're not getting the sleep.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because I know,
Such a knock-on
even
effect.
I remember talking to the doctor before about CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yeah.
And the doctor said to me, it's majority of people that get this are yes people. You know, they'll say yes to everything.
Yeah.
There's no boundary. No problem. I'll do it. No problem.
Yeah.
You know, that it's just give. And then you're emptying your tank and you're left with nothing but fatigue.
Yeah.
So that really does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how we know the difference between tiredness and fatigue. When we
Yes.
sleep,
Yeah.
it should take away the tiredness. Now, once in a while, we'll have, you know, one of those days or one of those weekends where it doesn't, or we need more.
Yeah.
It could be an indicator for you.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Do you have any helpful tips or tools? Let's say people that are struggling to either fall asleep or have that kind of disrupted sleep. Is there any type of ritual that you do before bed to help guarantee, or is it more your day-to-day life and how you have to look at the bigger picture? Or is there something to do that can kind of reset?
Well, I suppose the first thing is to say, look, there's a lot to it. It's an up and down journey. It's not going to happen straight away.
Yeah.
Like, one of the key things I've learned about sleep is that people say, I tried this, tried that, didn't work. It worked for 2 days and then I was awake again. You know, but I mean, we're not like that with the gym, are we?
Yeah.
We don't go once or twice and go, sure, that didn't work. You know, but we're like that when we try things with sleep. So your sleep routine starts really from the moment you wake up. I mean, I've been described as a sleep coach. I don't go into the bedroom at night while people are sleeping saying, you're doing great there. Keep sleeping.
Keep dreaming. Keep dreaming.
More REM now. Come on, more REM. So what I do is I look at everything they do from the moment they wake up. You know, so that, like, straight away, getting outside, setting the clock, you know, with light, being active, like the tiredness molecule, adenosine, that puts you to sleep. That's a byproduct of energy production. So when we're expending energy, we're building the tiredness molecule, right? So physical activity is huge. And then, I suppose, not over-consuming caffeine, keeping a handle on stress is the most, I suppose, overlooked thing ever, because the same systems that control sleep control stress. So if we are not coming down on that continuum, then, like, many people arrive in bed absolutely wired and tired. Like, God, I got through the day, exhausted. Yeah. What day is today? Did I take out the bins? I forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer. You know, all this stuff going on. I can't sleep, you know. So it's like, remind yourself, because as a species, like, we're designed to be sociable in the evening.
Yeah.
The day, the 16 hours should be split up into 8 hours of activity, you know, the things that progress us, our lives and as a species, and then 8 hours where we're actually socializing and calming down, you know, not keeping your foot on the throttle to squeeze everything into the day.
Yeah.
So it's to kind of be aware of that. And then the ritual, you know, maybe a couple of hours, maybe set what I call the reverse snooze button on your phone to tell you to get off the social media, you know. And evening is a lovely time to do some yoga, to do some stretching, to do a bit of self-care, to do all of these things. Like, we look at the chemicals that control sleep, really. You know, we talk about, like, serotonin, like that feeling of I'm happy in the moment right now. So where do we get serotonin from? We get it from food, we get it from light, we get it from hugging our partner or our pet, right? We get it from yoga, we get it from exercise. So, like, are people including these activities? Like, they don't sound like difficult activities. No. They're all pleasurable. I mean, cuddle on the couch, hug a pet, you know, do some yoga, have a sauna. Because often I think some of the healthier things are, this work, it's hard.
Effort.
These things aren't. These things are pleasurable to do, and you get the benefit. So build out your routine, and I'd say just before going to bed, then maybe do a mental exercise of letting go.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Sleep is the ultimate act of letting go of what I should have got done, what I didn't get to, what I have to do tomorrow. You know, so we need to let go of that.
Letting go of that control as well.
I know, absolutely.
And I feel like in today's world, anyway, majority of people are in the achievement lane consistently. So if I'm not being productive, then I'm actually not doing enough with my time. And being productive could literally be, like you said, sitting down and having a cuddle on the couch or a cup of tea and relaxing. But by the whatever we've been fed, whether it's through social media and everything that we're seeing online and in the world, it's all about achieve. You've more, like in women in particular, like you've more rights now to work. So get out and work and do more and be better and reach the top. And there's always competition. There's always something else coming. So to be able to understand that the rest part is so important and is productive. And I think that's where our passion lies, is being able to show people the self-care is just as important as the self-achievement or whatever it is that you're setting yourself, because without the balance of both, you'll get burnt out. And it's to try and avoid it, you know? Yeah. So being able, that was such a nice thing to say, like of all of those different things you can do that are so pleasurable. And it's like, why would you want to refrain from that? But I think, is it that, like, do you find even your clients you're dealing with, do you feel like that's something they're coming with, that it's like, but there's so much pressure on me, like I have to be the best wife, the best mother, the best colleague, sister, daughter, whatever it is. It's like that high achiever mindset.
No, absolutely. And sometimes it actually nearly break down, when I start asking them about themselves, really, like they'll nearly start breaking down, and they have in the past broke down. Like, when you start talking to them and saying, well, where do you come into this? Like, what about you? Who's looking out for you here? What happens if you go for a walk for you, if you do this for you, they forget. And I think social media, it's the same. It's like with the health messages, the same. The health messages or the achiever messages, it's so easy. You can open any platform and type in motivation, inspiration, and you can get all these quotes and you can get all this stuff that'll just like, and if you're not doing it, then you start feeling, you start beating yourself up. You start beating yourself up. Like, even, I mean, I've done a post about this recently on LinkedIn, because I just went on LinkedIn and one or two people had put like, my week, killing it this week, and they had like, got a PhD, done this, done that,
climbed Everest.
Oh my God, yes, climbed Everest, got my PhD, saved a child from a burning, and I felt, oh my God, I'm useless. I just kind of felt like, for a second, I just and I thought, wait a minute.
Sometimes getting out of bed in the morning is a success.
And I just remembered the weekend I had with my son on the beach, and to see, I got the most beautiful pictures of him chasing me with a bucket of water and the joy in his eyes. And I was like, that is more important to me than anything, to see that. And I actually done a post and I was like, here, in your face,
But I think the key there, what you mentioned there, is the fact that you were present with your son. And I think so many of us, because of the world we live in, the chaos, the overstimulation, the go, and trying to be everything to everyone, we're pulled in so many directions. And then we'll say, we don't have the time to do the sleep hygiene rituals. We don't have the time to have, I've literally barely time to wash myself, But I think it's really getting very honest with yourself and prioritizing that in order to help yourself down the line.
You've talked about, I speak about the currencies of time, energy and presence.
I love this. Yeah. Can you talk about that for us?
It's dawned on me like that, we're in this, we've adapted this way of living where we're just so busy all the time, and people don't seem to have time to cram everything into the day. And the conveyor belt keeps coming, right? Work, the stress, the bills, the demands, the family, the relationship, the project at work, the looming deadlines, the car. I mean, it just keeps coming, and people feel overwhelmed with the whole. They're overwhelmed and underjoyed Where's the joy in your life, right? So they've no time. Always on catch up. Energy. My energy, oh my God, my energy levels are down. I wish I had the energy levels I did in my 20s.
Yeah.
I see my 5-year-old, right, and the energy he has. And I think, well, if we all got 12 hours sleep a night, right?
We'd all be great.
If we were minded, he's minded all day,
He's minded all day. So
No
the currencies of energy and time and presence.
Presence, huge.
Yeah, Gabor Mate says the greatest gift you can give your child is presence.
Yeah.
And it is to anyone at work. And you've seen people, I've seen people like this who pull out their phones while they're talking to you and go, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, come on.
I just feel like, I just walk away. I would just literally walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So presence is huge.
And
huge.
kids pick up on that so quickly.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I remember watching a documentary around health and well-being, and there was a clip of a mother and a son, and she was rushing to get the bag packed, everything organised to go to the beach and spend the day with her son. And the son was like, wait. And he was sitting on the step. He had found a ladybird or something, and he wanted to show her, and she's like, come on, started pulling him. We really need to get to the beach so we can have this wonderful, perfect day I've planned for you. And all he wanted to do was just sit with her and show her the ladybird. Yeah. And then she stopped and she realised what was going on here. That's not the point about having the perfect day that I planned at the beach. He just wanted her to sit beside him and enjoy that moment watching the ladybird. And then it was just a really good reminder of the importance of being present with you, the people you love.
Yeah.
But I think especially kids are just so perceptive of it.
Oh, they are.
Soak it all up. Yeah.
I love the way, like my son, he used to grab me by the hair and go, look, Daddy. And he grabs me by the chin and just yanks my head and go, look, Daddy. I wish I could do that with people, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, people think that the problem is energy, time, or presence. Those are symptoms of the way we are living. That we're not actually setting the boundaries, that we're not looking after our sleep, that we're not, that we're in our heads, that we're not in nature, in life,
in our bodies,
in our bodies with each other. Like you mentioned, burnout. Like the fastest way to bring someone back from burnout, scientifically proven, the fastest way is sit them with another person, other people.
Really?
And have them laugh and connect.
Connection.
Like that is scientifically proven as the fastest way to bring someone back from burnout.
That's incredible.
We're not doing it now.
And how simple is that as well?
How simple is that?
Well, when you look at like these blue zones and you look at longevity.
Correct.
The main places the blue zone places, the granny and the granddad are living with the family.
Yeah.
In places like Italy, they're all living together.
community.
They're connected.
Right.
They're not alone. There's no isolation. They're part of a community. They're part of the family.
Yeah.
So that plays a huge role in it.
It does, yeah.
Can you also talk to us a little bit about stress and anxiety? Because we see it so much in the industry we work in, and, people coming in our escapes, people are burned out. Now, there's a difference between the two. And would these be kind of the most common reasons clients would come to you for, sleep disturbances or trouble sleeping, or
I guess,
is there a mix or a factor of things that play a part?
Yeah, it's funny because I get the worst cases first in my job. I get the toughest cases to crack first. The people who sleep 1 or 2 hours a night, they've been like that for 30 years, and I have to try and help them. And I do. And here's a key message for people: no matter how bad your sleep is, and no matter how long it's been that way, it can improve.
Really?
Yes.
that's
Oh no, absolutely. I've never met someone who has turned around and told me, no, well, there's no change. I've
really
never had, and
interesting,
it's, so I think it's the brain and the systems get stuck. Okay. And it's up to us then to try and change things. So but I would say that in 80 to 90% of cases there is stress or anxiety there. Now, according to the University of Cambridge, the only two groups of people who don't have anxiety are dead people and psychopaths. Okay.
Wow.
Right. So we all have a certain level of, and we need a certain level of it. If I didn't have any anxiety, I wouldn't be here now. I'd be saying, "Should be fine, be grand." Those bills will pay themselves. But it's when it starts to eat into our peace and our sleep that we need to kind of address it. Okay. Now, stress is different. The way I've heard anxiety described was like, imagine that you're a captain of a ship And then the wind picks up and the waves get big, and your crew all of a sudden start panicking, and they're running over to you and go, oh my God, we're going to drown. We have to change direction. You have to pull down that mast. We have to go back. That's anxiety. You're the captain, and you say, look, I understand how you're feeling. I know that you're scared right now, but trust me, we're going to stick with this path, and we're going to do whatever, but it's when those voices completely overwhelm us, and it might not be for a reason. Okay, we have different types of anxiety, and I'm not really going to get into that. But what I've seen is it creeping. It's crept up on people.
Yes.
And they have this anxiety that they never had before. And I would blame social media, and COVID and work-life balance, and our failure to kind of recognize, where we fit into it. So I've seen levels of anxiety soar, in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. In terms of stress, then, people need to realize the impact of stress. If we think about, again, it should be a positive. It allows us to get things done. So we're chemically and biologically set up to deal with stress much better earlier in the day. And how we operate, how we sleep, and how our brain works is we work in pulses, okay? We can talk about ultradian cycles and circadian and menstrual, you name it. It's everything in nature and life is pulses and cycles. But we seem to think that we can just put our foot in the accelerator and just work from the moment we wake up, or get things done, not just work, look after children, do this, do that, do this, do that, without any rest. And how our brains work actually is in these ultradian cycles, where we're much more productive and less likely to burn out if we take these little 15-minute breaks. So we need to ask ourselves, where are we on the scale in terms of our day-to-day, and do some breath work, do some relaxation to make sure stress isn't, we're not arriving in bed exceptionally stressed out, because, it's the damage of the chemicals that is hugely detrimental really to health. Like, we know that short-term stress is good for our immune response. We also know that chronic stress is very bad for our immune response and our mental health. And I suppose you could turn around and say nearly every aspect, fertility, if we're stressed out all the time, the message to the body is not, it's safe.
Yeah, it dysregulates everything, doesn't it?
It dysregulates everything. It's, and think about a lion or a tiger, and you see them completely chilled out, relaxed, playing with the cubs, eating, doing whatever, just complete. And then when they're switched on, they're really switched on. We've failed to switch off.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
That's the problem. Like, I don't have any clients who come into me and they're in rest and digest. They're in I'm stuck in parasympathetic. I'm too chilled out, Tom. No, no, zero clients. Like 100% of my clients are stuck the other way.
Yeah.
And do you know the thing is, they don't even realize how bad they are.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's the lack of awareness.
Yeah.
And as you touched on with the anxiety creeping in, I thought that was a really powerful description, because that's exactly what it does. It creeps in up, and it comes to bite you. Yeah. And it's so subtle and slow, but then all of a sudden you're just in this state and you can't nearly bring yourself out of it. And
just to mention some of the solutions here for people.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Because it's easy to talk about the problem, The first observation I have is, like, you can't think your way out of it. Like people often, and the problem is we're stuck in our heads, we're stuck in our phones, we're stuck in the theory of it. The healthy life, right, is not a theory. The spiritual life is not a theory. It's action result. It's action result. But we're not taking the right actions, or maybe we're too concerned with the results. And that's why we're not taking the action. So, like, what we have to do with stress is start to block off some time to address it. Like, there are short, medium and long-term things we can do, like the breath work being an immediate short-term thing to reduce stress. But we have to look at where the stress is coming from. Exercise is huge. It's one of the frontline treatments for anxiety. what treats anxiety successfully? Medication, exercise, both work within about 3 weeks. They start to work. And then the other thing is journaling. So it's a specific strategy from Dr. Paul Koik, who's one of the world's leading experts on anxiety. And he's done this with 300,000 people. So he's got them to ask themselves one question every night. What did I do today that was good for me?
Wow.
And you ask yourself that every night. And within 3 weeks, anxiety levels start to drop off. Same time as
amazing.
Yeah. So my dad said to me once, I'm not worried about the problem you have, I'm worried about the solution you're using. So, when it comes to the stress and the anxiety, I think we forget about the basics of movement.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned it earlier on, Rachel, about overstimulation. I can like, having spent 10 years in sleep and 15 years, as a health scientist, I can kind of boil it down to 3 things. We're not using our bodies for
what they're designed
their
to
intended
do.
purpose.
Yeah.
Like, if you had to find your food, right? If you want a chicken, you had to get up in the morning and chase the chicken. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Right? If you had to go picking berries and whatever else, and then a bull comes in after you, I mean, we should be pushing and pulling and building, and we should be cold and hot and cuddling up by a fire, and like, your body is designed for that.
Yeah.
Right. So the body is not being worked as it should. The systems are overstimulated. The nervous system is completely overstimulated. Absolutely. Huge, massive issues, inflammatory issues. And the mind is out of control. The racing mind. People are, again, most of my clients, my mind is racing, and it's like as though it's outside of them.
Yes.
It's not part
Separate,
of them. It's like,
yeah.
well, this is just me. And, nothing's going to be done about that. So we have to try, and this is where the meditation, and that's
slow.
another layer of sleep that people don't talk about, is the brainwave activity must drop down. We can talk about the supplements and the chemicals and all that, but brainwave activity must drop down.
Yeah, I know with like anxiety, for me, when I experience high levels of anxiety, which I do and have done a lot in the past, that it's just like when I'm in that state, I have to move. I can't sit in it because I just know it'll make me worse, which is great that I crave that movement. And then I feel like I'm ready then to sit and meditate. I find it very difficult to go when I'm in that really high state of anxiety, just sit and meditate, because you nearly just feel worse. But with the movement and then the breathwork and meditation, I just like that. I feel like a new person.
Yeah.
I just feel like a new person after it.
Chemically, your body's telling you to move.
Yes.
From a chemical perspective, because anxiety or stress, you're getting those chemicals that are things like cortisol and adrenaline and noradrenaline that are activating your system for movement. It creates a bias towards movement in your body. So you should be moving, but then after that, then that's the time. And that's what I mean about like kind of taking action rather than you kind of think your way out of it.
Yeah.
So action first.
Yeah. And finding a balance as well between
Totally.
the movement and the stillness.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drew us to the practice of yoga, because that's what it embodies.
Right.
It's always like ground, arrive, be still, then move, build up your fire, build up your heat, and then come back down to Savasana. And
like
they
a
always say
mountain.
it's the most important pose is the last pose where you have to lie in it. And that's one that most people struggle with. It's funny. It's like they can do a headstand, but to lie down and just enjoy relaxing, no.
Yeah.
It's the mind. It's all back to that and that mind-body connection. So it's
we've
so
lost that ability to do nothing.
To do the art of doing nothing.
Do nothing.
So hard.
One of the great expressions I heard from Buddhism is, what is it about boredom that we're missing?
We're not bored enough.
We're not.
I don't think as a society we experience boredom half enough as we should.
We don't.
There's no problem with being bored. We're too stimulated.
But boredom is viewed as useless.
Yes.
Yeah,
And a negative.
And a negative. Whereas it's actually not. And we talked about children earlier on. It's fertile ground for creativity. Boredom.
Yes. Absolutely, yeah.
And the word balance, Because you guys practice what you preach, I'm not going to pull you on balance, right? Because
No, please do.
it is something which is used as an excuse for people. I feel like most people who say balance to me are holding a glass of wine. I believe in the word balance, and I go, are you living your life in a balanced manner? Are you breathing right? Are you sitting right? Are you eating right? Are you moving enough? Are you sleeping right? Are you all out of balance? And now you're telling me about balance when I ask you to go outside that.
Yes.
When I ask you to push yourself physically, or when I ask you to do a cold water, I don't like that. I feel people are too much, I think, sometimes. But see, this is where we have to watch ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is where the compassion thing comes back in. When do I need to be more compassionate with myself, i.e. harder maybe, or softer?
Yeah.
And
I think the
And
strength and
that's-
softness come into both.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to, when do I need a bit of tough love?
Yeah.
And when do I need to just pull back and say, listen to your body and rest? And that's, I think that comes down to the person as well. It's
And the awareness.
Exactly.
Awareness, self-awareness.
Back to that mindfulness side of it as well. It's like, if you don't know what, like, if you can't connect to like what your body is craving, then you'll never be able to give it what it needs.
Yeah.
So if you have that disconnect from mind and body, then how are you ever going to be able to serve yourself in the right way?
Yeah.
And you can, like that, you can convince yourself, well, I'm comparing now to others. I saw that yoga girl or this person or that person do that, so I'll do that.
Yeah.
But it's like, everyone's different, everyone's individual.
Everyone is so individual, and only you know your
only
journey.
you know, exactly, yeah. So important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you about sleep apnea? A lot of people I've heard of are experiencing sleep apnea, and majority of people that I know that have it are a little bit older, and they have these machines, and which are not very pleasant to use at night. What about like the signs and symptoms of someone that thinks they might have sleep apnea, and is there an alternative to wearing those machines at night?
Okay, so sleep apnea is where the airways become completely blocked at night. So if we look at snoring first, snoring is a partial blockage, and the air is being forced through the tissues of the throat, and it vibrates. That's snoring. Sleep apnea is where the airway closes completely. So at night when we sleep, the tissues and the muscles relax in the throat and the neck, and often they sink back, and the airway then becomes blocked. And as people fall into sleep, the airways block, and a message is sent to the brain to breathe again, and they suddenly kind of wake up. But often they don't actually wake up. They will just go back to breathing again, and it's the partner that observes them. So there's a test online called the Stop Bang test. It's a series of questions, and the O is observed. Has somebody observed you stopping breathing or having difficulty breathing? Because often they don't know themselves, and sleep apnea is something which can really impact your health, your blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, type 1 diabetes. All of that can be profoundly impacted by sleep apnea. Many people have it, don't know they have it. So I think something like 80% of cases are undiagnosed.
Oh, wow.
Because people don't know they have it.
And the key with something like that is surely early diagnosis to be able to
treat it.
I'm sure that would help rather than waiting until it's that bad.
It accumulates. It's probably going to get worse. So like, what causes it then? Some people can just have narrow airways. Later in life, we tend to store fat more in the neck. Women catch up on men when they hit menopause. Men are more prone to it. Neck circumference comes into it. People can have polyps that develop in their life that can also influence it. So, like, what are the treatments or the pathways for people? This continuous airway pressure, the CPAP machine is what you spoke about, where this continuous air pressure forced. So that's one option. The other options are obviously the lifestyle changes, weight loss, smoking, alcohol, those type of things. There is something else called hyperglossal nerve stimulation. So that's a relatively new surgery that people can get done, where a little battery is is put in, and little wires stimulate the muscles of the throat to synchronize with breathing.
Like a pacemaker for your throat.
So well described. Well done, Rachel. I'm using that now. A pacemaker for your throat. I love it. So that's pretty much very accurate. Yeah, and that stops the airways closing.
Wow.
So it's like, why is it happening? Then there are other things that, like, you can get mandible braces or things like that that might help. But look, the first thing is diagnosis.
Yeah.
The first thing is diagnosis, and it can be a life-changing experience for someone. Some people love the CPAP machines, other people struggle with them. But diagnosis first, that's really important.
And would something like sleep apnea feed like anxiety levels and stress?
Absolutely.
Or would that have an impact on your day, you know?
It has an impact on your physical well-being and your mental well-being. You don't feel rested. People often wake up with headaches. So like that's another kind of indication. Are you waking up? Do you have daytime sleepiness? Have you got headaches? Dry mouth, like all of these little symptoms. But if people want to check it out, there's lots of information online. And the stop bang test is your first port to call, really. And then discuss with your GP, because you will have to get diagnosed. You will have to go on a sleep study and get wired up.
Okay, for an official diagnosis.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. This has been an amazing podcast, and thank you so much for being here with us. I'm sure we'll get you back, because there's so much more that we could talk about when it comes to sleep and everything else in lifestyle choices and stuff like that. So thank you so much for your time and all your knowledge. And we'll leave all your information in our show notes as well if people want to reach out and connect with you, and you can help more people that way as well.
I can, and I'd love to help more people. I want to inspire people to and let them know that, there is help there, because it's a desperate place to be, not sleeping. So I want to thank you guys as well for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. I love chatting to both of you. So thanks a million.
Thank you, Tom.
Lovely to have you as always. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for listening to the Love Your Limits podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If something resonated with you or you would like to learn more, please find all contact details in the show notes. We are also delighted to offer our listeners 1 month free access to Yogamara on demand. Use the code LOVEYOURLIMITS at sign up to watchyogamara.com. And remember, learning to love your limits is an act of self-care and self-love.